They feel a stewardship of the site, and I think that's a great way to describe it. They understand they've got something special at Magdala. They want to share it with as many people as possible, while at the same time preserve it for generations to come. Hi, I'm Jeremy.
Hello, Jeremy. I'm Jennifer.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Well, welcome to Magdala, the ancient first-century Jewish town.
Thank you.
And we have an active archaeological dig going on right as we speak.
I'm looking forward to seeing everything.
Well, why don't I show you around?
Great, let's go.
Okay.
This is an active archaeological site. About 3 months out of the year, they're working on uncovering new things. Universities send volunteers. Every couple of weeks, they rotate out. Recently, they found an incense shovel dating to the Second Temple period, Herod's period, the time of Jesus. So there's a lot going on right now.
Yes,
Okay.
we have pilgrims coming in every day.
So what do we have here, Jennifer?
This is a first-century synagogue in the Galilee area. It's one of 7 first-century synagogues that we find in Israel. Actually, many call it the Pompeii of Israel because of the beautiful design of the mosaic, the frescoes. It's very well preserved. And we have many different treasures inside.
Okay, now I noticed the entryway here. These stones look like they're Herodian. They've got the edges on them.
Exactly. We actually found those entrance stones in a corner in the synagogue, which was very curious, and with different clues have led us to the conclusion that the people themselves took apart their synagogue before the Romans came in the year 67 AD.
And what do we have a little bit further in?
Well, we can walk in here to the Bet Midrash.
Okay.
So this would be the place of study. And inside the Bet Midrash, you have a stone with little nooks there that you can put the scrolls. So inside the Bet Knesset, the second part of the area, there's a little room there that's blocked off by limestone, and that would be the Aroan Kadesh. So the scrolls would be stored there. They can get out the scrolls and open them up and set them here.
So you would use those nooks to rest the wooden, what we would call dowels, to rest those there to hold it open.
Yes.
Okay. So now we're standing inside of the synagogue, and what are we standing on and around?
Well, these are the seats that go all the way around. There would have been 3 columns on this side, 3 columns over here. Strangely, the columns are missing, but if you go kitty corner to the synagogue, there's a blockade to the marketplace, and there we find all the columns for the synagogue. And then the people could also sit all the way around the edge. So you could fit about 150 people in here. In the first century, it would have been both men and women.
Okay.
It's believed that they weren't separated at that time.
Okay.
It was a thrill to be able to sit really on the same seats that some of the first century Christians and believers in Christ sat in.
Now, toward the back of the room, we have this stone down there. What can you tell us about that stone?
This is a one-of-a-kind archaeological wonder and one of the first significant finds. Ironically, or you could say by God's providence, when the Israeli antiquity authorities came in to do their initial digs, they dug right over top of this. So this is the first thing they found, and then digging it out around and around, they discovered it's in the middle of a synagogue. Many symbols on this stone give us a schematic model of the temple where we have different objects we find in the hall, to the holies, to the deepest part of the temple, the Holy of Holies.
It's a scale model meant to represent the temple. How do we know that? What lets us know that it's supposed to represent that structure?
Well, you have the classic Jewish symbol of the menorah.
Yes.
So if the person is standing facing the menorah, they're actually facing south to the temple in Jerusalem, and it's like they're entering into the hall of the temple. This is considered the oldest carved menorah in a public place right now, found in Israel.
Okay.
Found in the world. And that menorah has a tripod base, which is very curious. That tripod base, it's believed that that's what it actually looked like in the temple.
In the temple.
Then you can look at the top part and you continue in and you'll find different objects that signify showbread tables where the 12 loaves of bread were offered every day in the temple. We also find 2 columns that are representing the columns that flanked the veil before the Holy of Holies.
Okay.
They have palmette capitals on top. And then you have that special flower right in the middle, the 6-petaled rosette. It has 6 petals and then 6 petals around, so 12 petals altogether, perhaps standing for the 12 tribes of Israel. And this flower is representing the veil before the Holy of Holies. And then the backside would be the deepest part of the temple.
Right.
So that would be the Holy of Holies. And we have an image there that represents the presence of God, the Shekinah, the glory of God. You have two wheels with triangles underneath, which represent fire. And so this represents a fiery chariot or God's throne.
So very much what we read about in Ezekiel chapter 1.
Exactly.
Okay. So one of the things on the back perimeter of this synagogue is all of this intricate tile work. And that's still original.
Yes.
And you're saying that that has a later dating than the actual synagogue.
Right. So if the synagogue started somewhere around the year 5 to 11, the mosaic is believed to be put in later around the years 40 to 50.
So several decades later.
Yes.
And then back over here, we've got some color popping off of this wall. What is that?
Yes, this is a beautiful fresco that's in the same style that you find in Pompeii, Italy. So this again gives it a first century dating.
Yeah.
You see the brilliance of the colors. It would have been all around the edges, making this a very beautiful synagogue.
It reminds me a lot of the color that you see at Herod's southern palace in Masada.
Yes.
Same kind of color scheme. Normally we just see the ruins.
Yes.
We don't see that.
Right, this is a treasure.
It is. It absolutely is. It's exciting to see it. What biblical texts could we connect from the time of Jesus in the Gospels to Magdala?
Yeah, well, we could go to Mark chapter 1, verse 39, that speaks about Jesus teaching in all the synagogues of Galilee. And this is clearly a synagogue of Galilee in the time of his public life. It's in use. We could go to Matthew chapter 4, verse 23, that speaks about Jesus teaching in the synagogues, preaching the good news and healing all kinds of illnesses. And we know there was one woman from this town who had the need of some healing.
Yes.
She was possessed by 7 demons.
Mary Magdalene.
Exactly. And then we could go more specifically to Matthew chapter 15, verse 39. And this is one right after the multiplication of the 7 loaves. It speaks about Jesus getting into a boat and he comes to the region of Magdala, also translated Dalmanutha, these words being a derivative and believed by many scholars to be Magdala. It's this region.
Okay.
And we have a port, a harbor that was used in the 1st century that actually connects to a road that runs right up here along to the synagogue, in between the synagogue and the marketplace. So you can perfectly imagine Jesus walking this road from the port, walking around and entering into the synagogue.
So what we would say about this synagogue and its use by Jesus is it's very likely that Jesus used this 1st century synagogue to do some of his teaching.
Exactly.
I'm very excited to be standing right here.
Me too.
It's just easy to visualize what people would have seen, how they would have used it, and to consider that Jesus likely was here teaching.
Exactly. It's a blessing to be here.
Absolutely, and it's well preserved. You all have done an amazing job.
One of the things they found there is this huge marketplace, and one of the stores in that marketplace was a fish market. You can actually see the indentations in the ground where the different types of fish would have been kept.
Now, what is of biblical significance?
Obviously, Magdala specifically is not mentioned in the Bible. However, in Matthew, the 14th chapter, beginning in verse 15, it says, "Now when it was evening, the disciples came to him and said, 'This is a desolate place, and the day is now over. Send the crowds away to go into the villages and buy food for themselves.' But Jesus said, 'They need not go away. You give them something to eat.' And they said to him, 'We have only 5 loaves here and 2 fish.'" And of course, we know this story is the feeding of the 5,000.
Right.
Jesus then took the bread and the fish and made food for all the people that were there. But what's interesting about this word fish here actually means a pickled fish or a smoked fish. And Magdala was known for its cured fish factory here, and that's probably what was sold here.
You just don't think about those types of background details, but to make the connection that there's this 1st century market in Magdala where they would have been selling and treating these fish, and that's likely where this boy would have gotten something like that. It just gives more depth, it gives more texture to the story, more detail that helps you realize this was a real thing. This wasn't made up. We don't think about where did those fish come from?
That's right.
You know, where were they preserved? But to come here and see this, it makes the biblical world come alive.
That's exactly right, and that's why we wanted to come to Magdala.
Every year, they're doing a better job displaying it, getting groups through, uncovering more. There are archaeological magazines and authors and people the world over that are writing about this thing right now, and we got to walk into it.